All right, let's talk about someone a bit younger, but not much. Let's talk about Alperen Sengun. Frank, is he the Rockets' center of the future? Is he a five? And what do you think his ceiling is, floor, and I guess like median most likely outcome for him as a for his career, or at least while he's still on a rookie deal? Let's kind of look at those two.
Right. For right now, I mean, he's very, very unique. I think the floor for him is going to be because I made a graphic for this was Sabonis type of player where he's a skilled post player that has passing ability. Those type of players though they demand the ball a lot, so there's a lot of fits with most teams with a post player and nowadays in today's NBA. And I think that's going to be something that he's going to have to grapple with. And his ceiling is, obviously Jokic. I don't think he's going to be as good as Jokic just off of his size. But I'm seeing him even the way he was trending. I looked at both their rookie years and how they played regarding scoring, passing, defense, efficiency. He literally falls right in the middle of Sabonis and Jokic. He's not as good as Jokic. He's not as bad as Sabonis was as a rookie. He falls in between. And for the Rockets, if they can get a player that's in between those two, I think that's a steal for a 16th pick in a draft. And is he a center? I don't know. I know he's a player, and if he's 19, I know his body is going to get stronger. His IQ is going to keep growing. His communication on the court is going to get better, and I can see him being part of a good team. And I really think that he is going to be one of the core pieces that they have going forward into the future, especially if your other core piece is an explosive athlete. I think that pairing works better just because of Jalen's explosiveness. If Jalen was like a slow guard or something like that, then I'd be concerned. But if you have high IQ with high athleticism, I don't see an issue with that fit and building a team around that.
Yeah, man. So I mean, I agree with you mostly, right? Like those are obviously the two players that you compare him to, and I think even just eye test suggests to me that he's likely to fall between them. Realistically, somewhere between them. Like I think he's a little better than Sabonis, or like not at the moment, but potential wise, I think there's almost no chance he'll be as good as Jokic, but that's okay because that's maybe the best player in the league.
Right.
Like one of the two or three. My question is, or what concerns me about LP, and I love him, I love watching him, but what concerns me is I fundamentally believe that defense is really integral to the five spot. Like I think that rim protection solves a lot of other problems. It's almost like the exterior of a car, and the playmaker is the engine. Is how I look at it. The
Mhm.
engine is the most important thing, but like if you don't have an exterior, you're kind of fucked too. So here's the way I would frame the question. Do you think that he has the potential to be a player that puts up all-star numbers, has all-star production, but limits the ceiling of your team because he's lacking one like really important fundamental ability?
I would say the rim protection is kind of a misnomer for him. He actually his blocking rate is pretty on par with most starting NBA centers. Especially when he gets the chance to play those minutes. One thing obviously it is an issue, his size. He gets punished by bigger centers, and that's apparent right now. To me, that's more of a function of strength rather than anything else. So for that, like when I look at his numbers, like in everything as far as reading defenses, he's pretty good at like pick and roll defense. He's one of our better players on the team at doing that. When he is in isolation, usually against smaller players, he does well. If it's a bigger guy, he'll suffer. In the post ups, he's average. All of that says to me is that he needs to get stronger and needs to get smarter. The reason I always use the comp, and this is a random comp, Draymond Green is a centerpiece for a one of the best defensive team in the past decade. I know people don't know the words for that, but they were pretty much throughout their run top 10 in defense every year. And for Draymond is not small, he's not big. He's only like 6'7", 6'8". He's small. He's not athletic, to anything. But what he has is IQ. And IQ to me is the great equalizer on defense for a lot of guys. I'm not saying he's going to be like a defensive player of the year, but if you have a high IQ guy, and I believe Shangun is, on your team, making those calls, being able to communicate, making those reads, guarding the pick and roll, getting guys in position. If you can put some good athletes around them and kind of cover up some of your weaknesses, then I think that you can have a top 10 defense with Alperen Sengun, because we're viewing him as a 19-year-old. I mean, really think about that. He's 19 and he's out here playing with these, grown men. He's going to grow. Like when he's 24, 25, just think how much more physical abilities he can be, how much more better positions he's going to put himself in to stop plays, how much more he can get leverage under bigger players that are trying to post him up. I mean, we see Eric Gordon and James Harden give fits to big centers just off of leverage, and I think all of that is there. So I'm not too worried about his rim protection or anything, because I think if you put a good weak side help for him, then that can be mitigated easily. I'm just excited about his IQ. And if he was just a regular dude, then, I'd say yes, but that IQ can equalize a lot of those issues, in my opinion.
I love
Yeah.
it, man. I love it.
James is just a sucker for the concept of like, we just have one elite center and the defense
Yeah,
is
yeah,
good.
right. It makes
You
it
know?
easier though. It makes,
It
I
makes
always,
it
yeah,
easier,
it does.
man.
It
You know,
really does.
I really do think like, because I've been a bit higher on Shingun's defensive potential because James and I like will message about this and it doesn't get heated, but it gets hot, right? Like, and I agree on that. Like, I do think the IQ definitely helps him, and also I do think that like, unlike a guy like Rudy Gobert, where it's like we build our defense around the fact that this guy is a citadel, you're gonna have to like give Shengun the right types of guys and the right type of scheme to have a good defense. And unfortunately, the Rockets' current roster is incapable of doing that. And I think that's what's led to a lot of fouls. But I do really like, his intensity. The
Yep.
reason he fouls so
Yeah.
much is because of those perimeter defenders. Sometimes I feel bad for him because it's like, they're just going right in, and he says, well, if you're gonna try to score, it's gonna be a tough bucket, and
Right.
fouls a lot because of that. But I will say the refs call a lot of fouls on him when he's playing defense, where it almost feels like they started blowing the whistle because they just didn't think he was going to contest the shot as well as he did.
Right.
And I think I don't know why, but it's like maybe because he's a rookie, maybe it's because of like the reputation, but like he'll block shots sometimes where it's like, that's not really a foul, but
Right.
he just got whistled for it. I don't understand it. Rockets fans complain ad nauseum about the referees. And I'm like, it's not the refs' fault. Like, you guys lead the league in free throw attempts. So like, I don't think the refs are like out here completely tanking your season. But yeah, no, Shengun, it's crazy to me. His defensive potential is what, like league average for a center, which is a pretty good defensive player.
That's a win. If he's league average for a center plus his other abilities, that is an all-star. And
Oh, yeah.
one thing that excites me when I look at these, like go through his data and I look at like his assists and his passing, abilities. I mean, they're pretty on I hate like per stats and per 36 and per
Yeah.
because they're, a theoretical, but I do like per 100. If I do the reason because it's a rate stat, it's just, it assumes a lot, but his per 100 assist is almost 6 assists because he passes so much. And I haven't even looked at his potential assists. But having that skill is you can teach. I mean, you can find a bunch of Clint Capellas, but you can't go out and go pick up a big man that has vision like that, that has the IQ he does, has the steals. He's one of the better centers at deflections and getting steals. So all those kind of high IQ plays, those hustle plays, like you said, he gets up on the defenders, even though he gets cooked sometimes on the perimeter. He's, sometimes he can hold his own. He picks a lot of guards when he's doing, and his chase down blocking ability is a little underrated. And I'm a little offended that James doesn't think he's a great rim protector because he swatted a lot of people's stuff off the glass. So, I'm okay with him. I'm not even worried about him right now. I'd like to see what they look like coming out next year and who we draft to fix that weak side help role for him.
Let me come back with a few of my pet points on this one. and
He
offend
just
you even
wants
more. What's that?
he's hungry like the wolf for Duran, and he just wants him to draft it. This is all this is. It's literally our podcast is just a Duran draft podcast.
That's right. All right, so first, I mean, let me say this first of all. Like, it pains me because I love the kid. I love watching him play. At the end of the day, if this is our center of the future, I'm happy with it, man. We get to watch ridiculous passing night in, night out. You know,
Hey, you love passing. You
I
literally
do,
say
I
that.
do love passing, but I love passing out of my forwards and guards.
Not your big.
I'm particular. No, listen, if he was also a great rim runner, rim protector, and passer, that'd be great, right? Couple of points I want to make. First of all, Frank, you mentioned that like it's easy to go out and find your Clint Capellas, right?
Right.
And that's something that I've been thinking about a lot lately because it's true. But I would say that archetype, the value is not defined by like its scarcity; it's defined by its utility, right?
Right.
Like you could find a lot of those guys out there, but what they bring to your team, there's a reason for that. It's because it's very valuable and NBA teams covet it. It's also because if you're 6'10" and you can jump really high, or if you're 7'1" and you can't jump really high, it's not that hard to stand in the paint and keep your hands up, and you could probably get a job in the NBA. You know, so that's another reason why the archetype is really common, but it's really valuable. If you look at the top offenses in the league right now, number one, Utah Jazz, number two, Atlanta Hawks, then you got the Bucks, and then number four, Phoenix Suns. All those teams feature a rim runner, rim protector in the middle, and then the rest of the offense builds around it, right? Like I just it's the model that I prefer, you know, and I think it's really effective. That's not to say that Sengun can't get it done, but I hope he can be a league average rim protector. The
Right.
last point I want to make, you made a really your point about Draymond is well taken. You're right. Like 70% of why Draymond is a generational defensive player is his IQ, right? He's pretty much like probably some kind of a genius, honestly.
Right.
He does have really good lateral mobility though, and like
True.
really quick feet,
True.
right? Yeah.
True.
So that's one thing. Like Shangun's got every physical disadvantage going for him, but I would agree that he's smart enough that he could get up to league average if like he really works at it.
Okay, I'm gonna put so as far as the offenses you named, what is the one key thing they all have?
Really good point guard.
Yeah, elite. You have like all world ball handlers, right?
Okay,
So to me, like you said, utility. You can have a Clint Capella if you have a James Harden. You can't have a Clint Capella if you have Jalen Green, or where he is right now. Hell, you can't have Clint Capella if you have a Zach LaVine, right? So what makes those guys valuable is the ability of the guy that's or running those actions with them to be able to find them, use them to their advantage, and kind of use them as an extension of their offensive game. And some of those teams have some, some really, really dynamic ball handlers, some of the best in the league. If we had a Trey Young level talent here as far as a ball handler, then yes, I'd be okay. But like back to the Golden State, they never ran a lot of pick and rolls in their offense, and one of the best offenses in history with them. And even with, if you think about where Stephen Silas is coming from with Dallas, um, not a million pick and rolls with that. They're five outs, try to space you out. He breaks down the defense, 2 feet in the paint, get the ball out to your shooters. So there's different ways. I think that archetype of big works with a guard. Like you have to have a star guard for that to work. If you have a bunch of average guys, all that dude does is just clog up the paint. So for our team, with what we have right now, we haven't drafted the point guard, like a Halliburton or somebody like that. I think Sengun actually fits better. That's why I say you put athletes around those type of guys, your Jokic's and those Embiids, those type of players that are high IQ offensive hubs, then you can get away with some of the stuff on offense and have a pretty good offense. Defensively, like good point about the feet. Yeah, I do. That is a big concern. His foot speed is not very well, and I can imagine a playoff series where they're hunting him out and just trying to ISO him to death, and they're going to foul him out or something like that. So that is something that potentially, if he doesn't get more endurance and more lateral movement and stronger base, then yeah, that could be exploited.
Why is it that 19-year-olds can't get better foot speed, can't get quicker. I feel like when guys come into the league, they're coming in so young that there's this tendency to be like, what they physically can do is what they physically can do, and it doesn't change and it doesn't improve. I just think
Right.
I don't think that's true.
It's not.
And I think it bothers me in that it's like we see from time, like all the time, guys improve their athleticism, improve their lateral quickness. I mean, if you think about Sengun, he's playing in Turkey where they probably, I don't actually know how they play, but I'm assuming based on the way he plays, it's more of a rough and tumble style
Right.
where like just slamming into people is kind of the game. And he's not expected to like guard guys on the perimeter. And it's like, well, maybe he just isn't as quick because he hasn't practiced that as much. Right. Like you watch him on offense, like his footwork and his foot speed is incredible. Right. So it's like, I don't know. I get a little, I feel like we pretend like athletes don't get more athletic when after they enter the league. And part of that's because we're so used to built into like guys going 4 years to college and come in the league. And so like for a long time, guys kind of came in as the athlete they probably were. But Shengun's 6 months younger than Jalen Green. Like people forget he's really, really, really young. So to me, it's like if they're concerned about like his conditioning this season, that's why they're not playing as many minutes. The foot speed, that probably will come. It will get better. And you don't need it to be, you're not asking him to be the point of attack defender. You just need him to be able to hold a guy hostage for like 10, not 10 seconds, for like a second or so someone can help out.
Right. And just to, for most younger guys, especially even college guys, your weight regimen and your training regimen, and when you have classes or you're a kid, is not the same as when you have a personal trainer, a nutritionist, all these physical therapists and all the stuff that focus on your body to help you develop. So I think his core strength and his leg strength, all of that will lend towards the foot speed and being able to hold a defensive stance for longer periods of time. When he gets his grown man body, same for Jalen and all those other guys. I mean, hell, look at Jason Tatum. And when he first came in the league to what he looks like now, and even on defense, he's a really, really good defender. He wasn't like that when he first came in. He wasn't looked at as a good defender. So it's something you can definitely, athleticism and strength can improve, for these players. And I think for all of them, the young dudes that we see, whatever we see now is not because they're younger than the average rookies because most of them are 1 year guys. That's all we have, 4 19-year-olds or whatever the thing was. And I don't really look at athletes until they're in their early, like 23, 24. Then I can say, okay, this is what this guy's going to be. Because by then your body is kind of starting to round out, maturity. So whatever people are projecting from now on it's going to be different. I'm excited to see this summer what Shangun, what Jalen, even Kevin Porter Jr., what Josh Christopher, even Garuba, all these guys, even KJ, what do they look like every summer when they come back to training camp? And for me, I think the biggest jump y'all are going to see is going to be with Jalen Green.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
I
Yeah.
love it.
Let me say this before we move on, and I think it's a little bit of a compromise, right? There are a lot of different
You
possible
fucking
outcomes.
Canadian.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I got to say something polite. There's a lot of different possible outcomes. Like I feel you. Your point about all those teams having elite ball handlers, very well taken. It's true. It's like that rim runner, rim protector archetype works best alongside like an elite offensive engine for sure. Only works alongside that really. But so I guess I would say that if Jalen develops into like a scoring champ, right? And then we draft Paulo Banchero, and Paulo Banchero's giving you 23, 10, and 5 or whatever, it might start looking like, okay, you know what? We need a Mitch Robinson type because our defense is horrible. And
Right.
we have our two offensive engines. And even though Shangun's really good, he'd probably be more valuable elsewhere, and we need defenders, On the other hand, if we draft Jabari Smith, I think the fit is so snug with
Yeah.
Sengun that, that's probably just like the team concept, and that's what we're rolling with. And I'll be happy either way, really. I think the kid is, offensively, he's like a prodigy, man. He's so gifted, but it's just a matter of like where the team goes and where he goes with it,